Good morning, Hallowed Haven family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down to have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind the Hallowed Haven Studios production. I'm Sol, and I'm joined by my co-host, Cyan.
Hello, I'm Cyan, and today we have a special episode. Instead of our usual sit down, we're going to be talking about Hallowed Haven's upcoming flagship show, Who's the Boss? A Chill 3rd Edition game. And to talk about that, we are joined by Scott, the storyteller for the campaign. Hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing fine. It's weird to be on this side of the table, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I actually had to take a second. I was like, who's my co-host again? Right, Cyan.
It's me.
It is.
Well, hello.
So Scott, would you like to just go ahead and give us a brief synopsis of what Who's the Boss is?
Sure. Well, Who's the Boss is a Chill 3rd Edition campaign that we're running based entirely upon our Session 0 for the one-shot that we did in December, the pseudo-Christmassy type episode, the Lair of the Krampus Chill game that we ran here on Hallowed Haven Studios. In the Session 0, we had a lot of fun because one part of Chill is creating the save office that your envoys are from. We can explain that a little bit later, but basically, like as part of the character creation, you want to figure out why they're a team, and so you build the office. And it turned into a hilarious sort of mockumentary thing about what goes on in the bureaucracy of the save office. And we decided to run with that as a show. So mostly it's going to be the characters dealing with like the question of whether or not they're actually like in an office infiltrated by the unknown, and there's just like a bunch of monsters, or it's just like their coworkers are all just weird people who just have their weird oddities. Because I mean, who that fights monsters doesn't just have some oddities, right? So it's going to be kind of a comedy horror, playing on the style of like The Office or like the Office Space. You know, this kind of it should be fairly fun because we're just going to kind of ad lib things and go with stuff. And I've got some ideas on like things going on, and then I'm just going to see how the players kind of react to whatever's happening. It's going to be kind of more free flowy than I think a lot of the other stuff that we see on Hallowed Haven, but it's basically 10 episodes of us kind of mockumentary, or 8 episodes of us mockumentary style in the office with this bureaucracy and things while they ostensibly hunt monsters.
Well, that sounds really fun. We know that Hallowed Haven has like a tradition of placing all their flagships in like a similar universe, like kind of like a Hallowed Haven cinematic universe. Is this campaign in the same universe as any of the other flagship shows?
No, not exactly. So it isn't, only because I didn't have any insight into that and I wasn't let in on any of that. But since it's going to entirely take place inside of this one like bunker office for people who hunt monsters, it very well could be in any cinematic universe, essentially. So good. So the answer is no, but also maybe, right? Because if anyone decides that they kind of like that, they could easily just be like, I'm going to insert this into my head lore that this is taking place the same time as Chicago Reborn, or the same time as Wayfair, like that kind of thing. Because it easily could be based on all the stuff going on in this office.
Like, these guys could very easily be hunters akin to similar to the people from Wayfair, or they could be Second Inquisition agents similar to what was happening in Chicago Reborn, but we're never, of course, never going to name names.
Correct. That's exactly correct, because the way that it's all built around that could easily be how they slip into those universes. If you look at like some of those agencies or some like hunters would need a bureaucratic background to be able to get their work done, then yes, this would easily be an office that handles one of those organizations, you know, that the Second Inquisition groups or something.
Fair enough. Tell us a little bit more about Chill Third Edition. We know that there was the one shot for the Lair of Krampus, but what exactly should viewers expect to see? Like the what's this system sort of like in terms of like themes and general idea?
Yeah, so it focuses on the idea that since the beginning of time, there has been this sort of fight between sort of humans and monsters. Like supernatural things have always been around, and the powers that they possess have always been around. And at some point, maybe back in old biblical times or whatever, people started fighting against these things. But in order to do that, they had to tap into some stuff. So over since the beginning of time, all the way through, there have been various groups fighting monsters in the darkness to keep humanity safe. And so in the modern day, this has become kind of a secret society where they called Save, which has like a Latin name, and I suddenly have forgotten it. But basically, that's its acronym. It's like the Holy Order of the Silver Way or something like that. But they have this organization that goes about hunting monsters, but it's become this agency, as it were, that is secretive, but they still do things a little bit old school. Like they still send letters to their envoys to say, hey, listen, you're in the area of blank, and there's some weird stuff going on, so we want you to go there and meet up with other envoys like yourself, whom we've trained and taught about monsters, and they know what's going on. And so you're just going to meet up and try to figure out what the heck is going on and stop it. And so that's sort of the background of the game as like the story part. But like along with that, the way that this system works, it's like different from say the World of Darkness storyteller system or whatever, is that it's first off, it's a D100 system instead of like a D10 system. And the idea behind the investigation part of it is that you will find clues as you go along, no matter what you do, whether you fail rolls or not, you will find clues. But some of the things, like if you critically fail a roll, for example, the clues you might find might be not useful for your investigation. But they might be red herrings or something, but you're going to find clues regardless. So like no matter what, even if you fail, you'll find a useful clue, but then you might find a whole bunch of like not so useful clues that maybe take you in a different direction. And then you're like, oh wait, we're not getting closer to figuring out what's going on. We need to go back and like maybe sort through these clues a little bit. So the game is designed to keep the story moving forward, that people will always fail forward essentially toward sort of the end. But then they also have this cool, neat system of damage in the game where you take damage from things like something will have like heavy damage or whatever, and you could take like a major wound or a minor wound or that kind of thing, and that will affect your stats. So you progressively will get like worse at trying to succeed. So it gets harder for you to succeed. So it like ramps up the drama and the fear factor. But that also they also have the same scale for your psychology as well. So like in say games like Call of Duty where you have like sanity rolls, in this system you kind of get to play with this idea that you're a little bit shaken by something, so you're going to do a little bit worse on your mental stat rolls kind of thing. All the while trying to ramp up toward the dramatic conclusion of the episode, essentially, and it's kind of like built on like the way that you'd run say like X-Files episodes or something, and that's what it's kind of built around. But it is in its third edition, and its first couple of editions, 1 and 2, were not quite so slick and smooth as this edition we're going to be using. In fact, they're absolutely impossible to read if you ever get a hold of them. They're just terribly written and terribly designed. But the third edition is smooth and silky and nice. But it's going to be it's geared toward investigating and finding out what's going on, and then using your kind of, if you have them, because not all of the envoys have supernatural powers, but if you have them, sort of using your supernatural powers to stop the supernatural, as it were, to save humanity. And that's sort of like a major difference. And what people can expect to see in it is this build toward something and these clues that people will find when they just look for them, essentially.
Okay, so you covered both the general setting and like how the system works mechanically. Could you tell us a little more about like what the kind of supernatural powers there are that we might be able to expect to see?
Sure. I know that one of the characters has this ability to move things with their mind, sort of telekinesis. It's a little complicated for them, so but it's pretty powerful if they can do it. But they have to do like a couple of different steps to like pull it off. But they can do things like they can move stuff or throw things. I know someone else has an ability to kind of see a little bit into the future. Um, I think there's some other ones in there. Oh, one person's like can heal people just like by touching them. So like laying on of hands and heals these like wounds and damage that they occur that incur along the way. That's where they're at now as like original characters. Presumably, as they go through this campaign, they'll gain a few more of the special abilities. But there's some other ones like there's like astral projection and stuff, and the and the interesting thing is that all of these powers that exist that they have, there's this the book kind of lays out this idea that it's potentially not it says exactly it actually says there's a big debate about it, but that they're potentially also the same powers that the monsters have, and that the humans are just like the envoys are just tapping into that evil way is what they call the dark powers for the supernatural, which they call the unknown, and they're just tapping into those and using them against the monsters essentially. And so the monsters are going to have those powers, as well as things like being able to manipulate reality around them. And in the lair of the Krampus, for example, the Krampus could just create darkness and shut off electronics. So there was a scene where I like had the lights turning off like one by one, and then the person who had their like cell phone flashlight on, like the cell phone flickered off and then just died for some reason. And they were like, what? And that's the kind of powers and things you can expect to see, like the creepy kind of stuff you see in movies. That's what we'll see when you kind of see what the PCs are up to and what the NPCs are up to, essentially.
Fair enough. Speaking of the PCs, can you tell us a little bit more about the cast you've got?
Sure. Our cast consists of a few people. It's going to consist of good old Gary from various things. If you've been watching Hallowed, he played an SPC in the Wayfair game that I was in, but he also has been playing a PC in the current Cyan game. So we've got him, and we've got Jade, and we've got Tanya and Termite. Termite, as some of you who are currently following, is currently playing Gwen in the Cyan campaign. So we have an antagonist who's going to be playing a protagonist in this game. And they're playing they're playing interesting characters. They got to choose their characters and like their characters' sort of history. So I think Gary's playing this grizzled old cop, well, kind of a cop, like a morgue worker that like kind of cop that realized that things were not as they seemed and decided to kind of come over to the dark side, as it were, of the save agency. And Termite's playing a character who's a computer scientist who is a trans person like themselves. So they were excited to play that character. And then Jade is playing a kind of like an accountant, which is really funny because that's kind of what Jade does. So it's like we're playing themselves a little bit. And then Tanya's playing this thief, this sort of cat burglar who just apparently likes to steal stuff from people's desks and hide them in her drawers, which we hopefully will get to see some funness with, because that's how we established the character in that one shot that we did. She steals everyone's pens and makes pen sculptures. So that's going to be part of the campaign for sure.
Sounds like fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of different cast members, I saw all the ads that got posted for SPCs. What kind of plans do you have involving them? Like a lot, a few? Any space for the Patreon patrons to kind of get involved with that?
There are so many spaces for SPCs. Like, I was trying to get like a potentially bigger cast than Cyan to help with this, but I didn't, unfortunately. But I have a few people lined up to play some pretty important characters for the overarching kind of campaign idea that I have for this, involving some stuff that it's hopefully going to be funny to other people when it all kind of comes together. But there's this idea that I've got going on for what the antagonists are up to in the campaign, and the SPCs that I have are going to be playing the key people in that particular plan. But and there's going to be a head of research, the HR person, and the unnamed intern that no one can seem to remember who they are, but they always are there with coffee, and they know everybody for some reason. So that's what I have so far, and they're kind of reoccurring characters, but also part of the overarching plot. But because it's like The Office in its intent, there's lots of space for patrons to come in and be like a character, just whatever kind of goofy character they want to be, or serious character they want to be for an episode. Because I can always use more people to make this all feel like a real goofy office, right? I don't have anyone I think playing the like Kevin kind of character, right? So none of those people, right? I could have anyone that you'd want, like any character. So there's lots of space for SPCs, but I have the core ones locked in to play the people I need to move the plot forward and to make interesting points for the players. So if anyone wants to join, absolutely message me and we can figure out how to fit you in to these spaces that I have, because I have tons of NPCs. Because if you've ever been to a modern office, there are positions that you're like, what does that position even do? Collator, you just stand around the printer and just make sure all of the things are collated. Like, what do you do in this office? Somebody's got to make coffee, right? Like, so I've got all kinds of potential positions for any patrons that want to join.
Yeah, I would personally like to see more NPCs like the ephemeral intern. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the hopefully the running gag with the intern and the HR person, who's like your typical stereotypical HR person, always looking for things people are doing wrong, are funny or interesting enough to anyone who's worked in an office before, that we can get more of those kinds of people.
so no spoilers, obviously, but what about this campaign makes you the most excited to run it?
I like the idea of there being like horror and then sort of juxtaposed there's some comedy in there. Like when you get horror is obviously serious, right? It's like this thing where we get a little uncomfortable, we get a little scared, because fear is this tremendous emotion, that humans can experience. And so to have a sort of this comic relief to go along with it is I think a really cool idea of being like scared but then laugh, right? Because laughter is another powerful kind of emotion. So I'm liking the idea of playing with these, like there's these horrific things going on, but in the meantime we have these like people that are supposed to be well trained, kind of bumbling about, not quite sure what they're doing, and potentially creating really funny role playing sort of situations. I mean, like I said, we already had the one player playing their character and was like, yeah, I definitely steal the key cards from people so that they're always stuck outside and stuff, and no one has any idea, and it's always me. And then somebody was like, well, what do you do with everyone's key cards? I don't know. I just make sculptures out of them. It's kind of nice. And then they dropped this like bomb in the one shot where it's like, they steal things from people's desks. So you go through people's desk, and she was like, yeah, you'd be surprised to find out what weird stuff people have on their desks. And they just kind of left that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely coming in the campaign. That's definitely going to be a thing. So I like this idea of like this scariness with the overarching, like what's going on by the antagonists, and the comedy that's going to go along with that.
Fair enough. So when should we be able to start expecting to be able to watch this campaign?
Well, it's going to be Fridays in April and May. The standard slot. Well, I think it's going to be a little later than the standard slot that we generally see Hallowed Haven episodes. And they're going to be a little shorter, only because of that. Mostly because of scheduling. My scheduling specifically for that. So they're going to be shorter episodes. They're going to be 3 hours instead of 4. But they will be at I think 9 o'clock. Yeah, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Fridays in April and May. So every Friday. So the 8th is the 7th. Sorry, 7th or 8th. Hold on. Look at my calendar real fast. The 7th will be the first episode, and then it'll be every Friday after that. So 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th, and then the 5th, etc. So I guess we're having an episode on Cinco de Mayo. That's a good thing to note. And each episode, my plan is that each episode will take place roughly 1 week after the previous episode. So it'll be kind of like the stuff like that, like the time that passes between games will actually be hopefully the time that passes in real life as well. But I mean, obviously it depends on where they leave themselves. If they put themselves in a cliffhanger moment where I can't just move the clock forward a week, then we'll just go from there. But the plan is that's the plan for every Friday, and then the in between game time will actually be the same real time.
All right, yeah. Do you have any tips for like people in the chat to get involved? Like, what is the kind of stuff you're hoping and expecting to see from the viewers?
That's a good question. I think what I might like to see in the chat, I mean, other than people just, generally enjoying the show, but like also maybe people like throwing out ideas of stuff that like, especially if you've worked in an office before and you're like, oh, there absolutely would be like this unending supply of paper clips or something, right? Like, oh no, they're out of pens. Like somebody's got to make an order, like that kind of thing. Like whatever ideas that you might have, like throw them in the chat because I will pick them up and see if I can incorporate them. So the viewers will have a great opportunity to be involved, like almost directly in the show. I mean, I can't guarantee that I will incorporate it immediately, but certainly like throwing out ideas while in the chat is going to be fun to see. But yeah, mostly just kind of like your whatever you're seeing, whatever you want to react to, whatever thing that spurs you into talking about stuff. That's kind of what I hope to see from the viewers. Like, oh, this reminds me of this time that blankety blank that I did, and whatever. That's what I'm hoping for from our viewers.
Well, I myself am really looking forward to seeing how this plays out, laughing and crying along with the cast.
Yeah, I hope so. I have the just our enjoyment from the session 0 was really fun. So even if it's just us having fun together and it's just a thing that we did, then that will be fine with me.
Well, fair enough. I personally am hyped, and I think that this would definitely get other people hyped too. So we hope all of you are as excited to watch this show as we are. Thank you for watching. And as usual, you can join us to have a cup of coffee with the cast and crew of Hallowed Haven Studios each week. These episodes are dropped Thursdays at noon for the $5 plus tier. They are released to the public 1 month later, so think about subscribing so that you can keep up to date with your talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.